My advice to you is to start drinking heavily.
You take drugs, Danny? Every day. Good. So what's the problem?
Greed, for lack of a better word, is good.
Thank you, sir. May I have another?
Boy, that escalated quickly.
You know, before this is over, I'm gonna need a whole lot of serious therapy.
Johnny, I got so much energy. We better start doing stupid shit.
All right, we should probably let her in now.
Hello.
Hello, Ellie. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Doing good.
Good. I was like, hello. And then you're like, oh, I think I should let her in now. I'm like, oh, well, I guess I'm not in quite yet.
I didn't know you could hear that. Yeah.
No, it's okay. I was just like, that'd be great. That's fine. How are you guys?
Doing good.
Good.
I was actually at the shore this weekend, so I forgot a sunscreen on my face. Of course.
Yeah, you know that you're supposed to put that on to like protect you from the sun so you don't get burned.
I know. I was concerned.
You went to college. You should, you have a college education. You should know these things.
I know.
No, it's okay. I got burnt last weekend on my shoulders, which I knew I was going to be playing cornhole outside. I did like a cornhole tournament all day. Not really all day because we lost in like the second game, but I was like, yeah, I should probably put on sunscreen next time. So,
yeah, I mean, I was concerned with the shoulders and the back, but it just wasn't the face. I guess
the face of the head. Yeah,
the face of the head, which I should have done.
Right. That's what you should be concerned with the most, right?
I know, it's the moneymaker.
Right. Exactly. So, but thank you guys. I'm in my I'm at my parents' house in Virginia, so that is not my sewing machine. That was my stepmom's.
Oh wow.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
Nice.
I would say this is my background. So.
At the home studio going.
Yeah, Ellie, thank you so much for coming on. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. I've seen Brad's post that you guys do this, so I'm honored to be able to be on. It's great. Yeah,
of course. So we are joined by Ellie French right now. She is a sports anchor and reporter at WTOK-TV down in Meridian, Mississippi. So let's start from the beginning, though, Ellie. You went to Penn State, for broadcasting, obviously. But when did you know that you wanted to pursue sports broadcasting as a career and a profession?
Yeah, I actually, I believe I always tell people, I think I was like 13 when I figured out that I wanted to do it. And it's weird. I kind of have this exact moment where I remember realizing that I had wanted to do it. I was like just a random morning before school and Sports Center was on, and my mom and I were watching it, and like Hannah Storm was anchoring or something. And my mom said something like, oh, if I could do it all over again, like I would do that. And I was like, well, I haven't really figured out what I want to do yet. And I love being around sports. Like at the time I was playing basketball. My brother played football, ran track. Like we were always a sports family running around to different events. And so when she said that, something just kind of clicked with me in the kitchen we were watching. And I'm like, that's what I'm going to do. And so then from there, I just looked at schools that had good sports and good journalism programs and ended up with Penn State, and was so happy to make the decision because it was a great program to go through, and the sports, not even just football, but all the different ones that they had there were so fun to cover and to really learn and be ready for the professional industry. So
absolutely.
But
yeah, that's awesome. So it's so funny when we bring people on to this podcast, right? So just to give you some background a little bit, I started this podcast just to have just to kind of give my friends an outlet to be able to talk about all the things going on in their lives and everything. And it's so nice to hear from you. And it's it's really just nice to be able to talk to someone that I haven't met before, right? So Brad talked about, it's been great and everything. And it's so funny too, because everyone that comes on here, they have this kind of nice background and everything like that. I'm just saying it's just been really cool with that. So.
Yeah. Well,
I got my sneakers in the background, so
he's showing off the collection.
Exactly, showing the case.
Yeah, I know. I was like, should I attempt to put something sportsy? I was like, should I wear something sportsy? because I was like, I have actually, now that I'm home, my dad got me a cool gift for Christmas. I can't remember I think it was not this past Christmas, but another Christmas ago. So I'm like a big 49ers fan, and I get it from him. And he got me like Ronnie Lott's one of my favorite players. So he got me a signed Ronnie Lott jersey.
Oh, wow.
And so I was like, I have it in my closet to like protect it because I want to get it framed. And I'm like, oh, should I throw on the Ronnie Lott jersey, like the signed Ronnie Lott jersey and stuff? But it's like a massive thing. So I was like, no, I'll wear normal clothes or something.
That would have been a power play.
So you grew up in San Diego, right? So
yes.
How did you make your way to Virginia and then I guess eventually to Penn State?
Yeah, it's interesting. And then everyone's like, but you're from San Diego and you like the Bay Area team. So it's confusing. So my dad and stepmom moved here and I finished out high school in Virginia. So because like for my dad's job, they moved here, I kind of went with them and finished out high school here. And then Penn State, my mom actually is from Pennsylvania. So I always knew Penn State. Like her family lives in like Lancaster area, like Amish kind of area almost. Yeah. And so I always knew Penn State. Like growing up, you know, they would send us Penn State stuff, and she had this big, beautiful like painting kind of thing that she got actually from when she went to a game. And it's actually, she's in San Diego right now, like seeing my brother, and she has it in a storage unit that she's had for like 6 years. And I'm like, I specifically told her, I'm like, you need to go to your storage unit this week, get this beautiful mural because it has like Joe Pa and like the team on it. It's like really hard to explain. Get this mural and send it to me so that way it's not sitting in a storage unit anymore. And she's like, okay, like I'll go. I'm like, I hope it's still in good shape. But so that's how I ended up in Virginia, because dad moved here for his job and just finished out high school here. And then just landed on Penn State just because I felt it was like the best fit after I visited. It was a beautiful day, like in April, I think, that I had visited, and I was like, this is where I want to go. And I was really happy that I did. I think I visited like Maryland because it was close to where I live here in Virginia. And I've gone to Michigan State before because that's where my brother went to school. But once I visited Penn State, I was like, I don't really need to visit like Indiana where I got in or something. It was kind of like Penn State and Florida, like University of UF were like my top two, but then I didn't get into UF, so I'm like, Penn State it is. So.
That's literally me too. I didn't get into Florida either.
Yeah, they were like, you can do online stuff for a year and then come in the next year. I was like, no, I'm not doing that. Yeah, I'm like, you're not that great, Florida. I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, I'm going to Penn State. I'm like, thank goodness. So.
Yeah. Well,
but absolutely. That's so fun. Yeah, that's sort of my background.
We actually met, Ellie and I did at a scholarship banquet through college.com.
Yeah.
So,
seated at the same table.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I was like a freshman, and I remember being like, I don't know anyone that's here besides like comm radio people or something, but I was like, I'll just go because it's free food. So,
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that was how we met though, was doing that. And I don't think I got another scholarship until like senior year. So it was like freshman year, senior year, because I kept forgetting to do the application to fill out. And then I was like, I should probably do that again, like get some money. So yeah,
I should have done that more too. But that's just kind of how we know each other, Johnson. And then through comm radio and stuff, which she was very involved, and kind of like you bounced around a lot in college of comm, right? You CCR, did Penn State athletics as well. Like the student U for Big Ten Network. I know that was a big thing as well. But kind of like walk me through those experiences and, how they impacted you, not only in college, but how they prepared you for what you're doing now.
Yeah, no, definitely. I would say, because like from the get-go, I did like comm radio and Penn State Sports Night. And because comm radio was really cool, but I knew that I definitely wanted to be like in front of the camera type stuff, and comm radio was kind of more like you could do some beat writing and have a radio show and do some other stuff. So I was like, okay, that's fun to do, but I also want to do like in front of the camera stuff. And so I did like a little bit more of like beat writing, I guess, with comm radio, because I never had like a radio show, except now I'm like, oh, that would have been so fun to have, because I love like coming on podcasts and doing this. And I do like radio in Mississippi like every Friday morning. And so
really? I didn't know that.
But yeah, like our main anchor, he's our old sports anchor, and there's a radio station called Super Talk Mississippi. It's like across the state, and so we do sports radio on Fridays at the Meridian station. It's super fun because we just
That's awesome.
talk about usually college football because it's huge
Yeah.
down there and whatever. But so I did some comm radio stuff, and then Penn State Sports Night was fun. I think that kind of helped a lot with preparing, except because that's like a show that we would do on Mondays, and then we would just throw it on like YouTube. That helped, I think, preparing, just because like you're literally at a desk and you're reading off a teleprompter and stuff, but also it wasn't live or anything, so we could kind of mess up as much as we needed. Versus if it was live, it would be a little bit more like it. But I think then when I got into CCR senior year, that really helped too, more than I realize now. That helped because Steve Krasik, who was our teacher, he would tell us, like, our requirement was only having to do, I think, 5 stories a semester or something. But I remember him telling us, like, oh, you might have to do like 5 stories in a week sometimes. And I'm like, how do you do 5 packages in a week, or a package in a day? Because I just thought it was like crazy. But now I'm like, oh, I see what he means, because it's just getting in the industry. But I think it definitely helped me. But I think the biggest thing in this industry is getting your foot in the door somewhere and actually like diving in and doing it, because you will learn, because there's only so much in college that they can teach you. You almost have to like remember what you learned in college, but self-teach yourself once you get out and like find your groove, especially with sports. Like you start to kind of find like your flow of how you like to do sports and how you like to present stories and this and that. So like when I'm on camera, like intro, I don't want it to just be like a generic intro, kind of like make it more conversational as best as I can. And so it kind of like I just feel like I've now found my flow, versus in school I was more just kind of reading whatever was on the teleprompter, and it felt more newsy. I'm like, sports is fun, like we can have fun and put our own flair to it. And so that's what I've kind of learned within this first year, because I hit a year in July of being in the industry. It's just like being comfortable and being myself finally.
Yeah, that's awesome. I feel like that's good advice too for people across the board, just kind of like you said, experience it and then have your own flair on it too. I think that's great advice. Yeah,
because I mean, the last thing you want to do, especially sports, like that's supposed to be this break from all the not so positive stories you find in the news sometimes. Like if there was a murder, or of course coronavirus stuff is everywhere. It's supposed to be this break of like, okay, here's some excitement and some interesting stuff to look forward to, even though sports, of course, like everything in life, is being affected by that right now. So you just try your best to, because in the beginning, a lot of it was, all right, here's what's being affected because of coronavirus. But now that stuff is starting to kind of finally come back, I can not have to talk about that.
Yeah, I feel like it probably was tough during that time there.
It was. I mean, I think I was working at home for maybe like 2 months, if that, like just not being able to anchor and just kind of creating a sports rundown from home. And our main anchors that we're in would just read it, which was fine. Cause like I said, our main anchors are old sports guys. So it was fine, but it was, and I went live from home 2 times. So I had to set up my like studio, or like a home studio, and kind of like show that. And I did this because Mississippi State women's basketball coach Vic Schaefer left, and he's like a legend. And so I did a story on that, and did a story on the new coach that got hired. And I did like a stand up in my living room, and I was so mad because I have like this light fixture that hangs down, and like you could see like a little bit of it in my stand up, and I was like, almost had it perfect, but you could see the light fixture in it. And so I'm just like, I feel like include that in my reel though, because it's just so funny to be like, because I'm like, I got to start making like a 1-year reel soon probably, but which is fun because I'm like, it doesn't stress me as much to make one now versus coming out of school, because I feel like I actually have decent stuff now versus coming out of school. I'm like, I would not hire me. I don't think I'm very good.
So what is it like working in Mississippi, and do you like it?
I actually really do like it, because I think I just really love what I do. And so I wake up every day being super thankful that I get to do what I do, that I'm like, I would do it pretty much everywhere or anywhere, aside from like maybe like Alaska or something. No offense, Alaska, but which is funny because like my dad's uncle was like an anchor in Alaska, like Anchorage for forever. He's like, you should go to Alaska. I'm like, no, I'm not doing that.
Yeah, no,
but I really do like Mississippi. I had never ever visited the South since I went down there for my interview. I'd never been like had never gone to like Alabama, Louisiana, like anywhere south, Tennessee, nowhere. So Mississippi has been my like first introduction to the South, really. And I was fine with going there because of how much, like being in basically SEC country, I knew there was going to be like a ton of people that loved college football down there. And also climate, like, yes, it's ridiculously hot, but I was so ready to get away from like the cold winters at Penn State because I hated them. And I'm much more of like a warm climate person, even though that's like excruciatingly hot climate. But I obviously live in a very small place. I mean, we're about maybe 10 miles from the border of Alabama. So we do like East Mississippi, West Alabama is like our coverage area. And it's a small town. Like there's not a Starbucks there like that you can go to. There's not like, I mean, there's not really like, there's some sit down restaurants, but it's like, there's no, like I had Panera for lunch today. There's no Panera. There's like McAllister's, like one or two McAllisters. Yeah. So there's not like, that's, I think the biggest thing I struggle with is there's not like a whole lot of food options. And if there are, they're usually like drive through, like Wendy's, McDonald's, Burger King, Subway. So I'm like, but I really do like it. People are so nice in the South. Like Southern hospitality is such a thing. When I first started working there, there wasn't a story I did where I didn't get like fed or given water or something.
Oh, wow.
Like everyone's like, my first story actually that I ever did was, and he just won the Senate, was Tommy Tuberville won the Senate in Alabama. And so at this point he was going to do a talk at some restaurant in Butler, Alabama, where we cover. And they're like, well, you could go do like a sports news angle on it. And I was like, okay, sure. So I just like went and interviewed him quick, and it was at a restaurant. It's like Azel's Fish Shack is what it's called. And so they're like, oh, like go to the buffet and make yourself a plate. And so it's like hush puppies and fried chicken and like, yeah, they're like, please, because they just love the coverage. And so people are very, very gracious there and really nice. And, you know, they love whether they love Ole Miss, Mississippi State, Alabama, LSU, Southern Miss, like everyone has their allegiance to someone. So,
yeah,
but I like it.
I've never been to the South. I definitely want to go. I know Johnson travels around a lot, so you know he's.
So where have you been?
Yeah, I live in Houston too, so like I had to.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, have you ever? You've never been to the Grove, but you need to get to Ole Miss.
No, I have not been when it's the Grove. I went to go before the Egg Bowl. They sold like Egg Bowl coverage stuff, so I went to Oxford and interviewed their like radio guy, who is a former player whose name is like escaping me. But I interviewed him and went up to Oxford and met him, and so I went to like where they set up the Grove and everything. And yeah, I mean, it's a beautiful like area there for sure.
Yeah, Oxford is fantastic.
Yeah. Everyone definitely is like Oxford's like, you know, Ole Miss is like the ritzier school and stuff, like because of the Grove and everything. But it's beautiful.
Yeah, I've never been to Starkville, so I guess I got to get there at some point.
I would honestly say that I feel like Starkville and Penn State are kind of similar. I mean, I haven't gotten a chance to really like check out. I don't even know if they really have like a downtown area like we do with State College. I don't think they really do, but I would say because they're both state schools, maybe they have that similar vibe. But yeah, it's nice. I mean, they have like, you usually come down the street and then you'll see kind of the stadium is like really big right there and stuff. And those cowbells are extremely loud. So,
obnoxious.
Yeah, they're very, very loud. Like, I mean, because everyone's, you know, walking in and you hear a jingle here or there, but when they're all in unison together, it's like, it's amazing. So it's very, very loud, but it's like I had gotten used to it by like the third game covering there. So
I'm sure the Egg Bowl is going to be extremely
it's
entertaining this year.
Man.
Mike Leach, Lane Kiffin, that's going to be some entertaining matchups.
I can't wait. I keep
You'll probably
thinking
interview
about
him too, right?
Definitely after, because when Mississippi State won this last year, like, you obviously have the post-game press conference. It was like Moorhead was super fired up because he's obviously like was on the hot seat of like, you lose the Egg Bowl, you're out of town, basically. But then they nixed him anyways after the bowl game loss. But he was his post-game talk was so funny because you knew he was going to be so fired up because of that. And that's when he gave that sound bite where he's like, this is my team, like, this is my school, like, blah blah. And then he said you're gonna have to drag my Yankee butt out of here. And it was, everyone was just like, oh my gosh, because like he always gets that's the thing. If like when I say I'm from, like, went to Penn State, people I think assume that I went, like, am from Pennsylvania. So like they're like, oh, you're a Yankee. I'm like, no, I'm not a Yankee. No. But people do still say that though. They're like, oh, or if you haven't had that, they're like, oh, it's because you're a Yankee. I'm like, I'm not a Yankee.
That's funny.
Yeah, no, they use that. People use that. Not everyone, but like some people do. It just like funny. But that game was great after because everyone thought that Tommy was going to play that game because he had gotten. I mean, Tommy Stevens battled through like just random injuries that season and didn't really get to have a full season. So everyone thought that he was going to start that game, but then he didn't have pads, and so they're like, okay, Garrett Schrader's playing, which he did great his freshman year when he did come in and play and stuff. And so that game was very exciting though, with like being right there in the end zone, shooting the Ole Miss Elijah Moore touchdown. Then he lifts the leg and we're like, he just did the DK Metcalf. And then the flag is raining and then the missed field goal. And we're like, oh my gosh, there's still time though on the clock, but everyone's running on the field. And like, just when it all ended was crazy.
Yeah, that game was insane.
Yeah, and I, from watching old Egg Bowls and talking to people, it's almost like no matter how good Ole Miss is or how good MSU is that season, like you could go in and say that Ole Miss has won a bunch of games going into this year's Egg Bowl and stuff. They still could lose. The game is always like such a toss-up. People say they're like, no matter how good they are, it just always seems to be like an exciting game because of that rivalry. And so it's fun, but this year it's going to be even more interesting with Kiffin and Leach because they already like joke with each other all the time because like a lot of coaches across the state, they were obviously at the Capitol kind of petitioning for the state flag change. And so they were all there and they were all messing with each other already and stuff. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens, but I think they both have very good offenses though, for sure. So I'm like, I know it might be who has the edge defensively, but it's gonna be good. There's some talent on both the teams. So you'll
have to tell us how Lane Kiffin, what he's really like after you interview him. Report back to us what he's like.
I have this like vision in my head of Lane Kiffin, and I would love to be able to talk to that guy.
It's like the Tosh.0 vision. Remember when you did that?
I think that because I liked the Lane Kiffin hire better than the Mike Leach hire, and I think MSU fans were just kind of happy to get Moorhead out, which I was like, okay, fair.
Sure.
Because I think Moorhead is a really great OC, and I don't know if he was quite ready to be a head coach and be thrown into the SEC. So I'm like, that's fair and stuff. But I'm like, bringing in Mike Leach as a replacement, like, I never would have expected that. I thought he was just going to kind of ride off into the sunset at Washington State, and that was going to be that. So it's kind of a interesting hire because everyone is very like, they want like a Dan Mullen type coach back in there. And I'm like, I don't know if Mike Leach is going to be your saving grace, but that's kind of what they're hoping. So it'll be interesting, but I do like the Lane Kiffin hire. That was kind of interesting when they got rid of Matt Luke, but I was like, okay, I understand this. But I thought that was a good hire, and we'll see how he does. It'll be interesting too when they play like Alabama and, and all that.
Kiffin versus Saban, that's must watch.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. And they've created like I know that Ole Miss is going to have a series with the USC in the future, and some other series
Oh,
have been
nice.
added. Yeah, so I'm like that'll be cool. And Penn State and Auburn start their series
Yeah.
next
Oh,
year,
I
which
can't
is
wait.
awesome.
I'm actually going to try to
Yeah.
go down to Auburn.
I
I
kind
want to
of
experience
want to.
that.
Yeah, there's a girl actually who I graduated with from Penn State. Her name is Gianna Hahn, and she, um, I'm trying to think what she did at Penn State. She might have done collegiate and some other things, but
Okay.
she covers Auburn for AL.com.
Oh,
So
wow.
she's there, lives in Auburn, and I'm like, Gianna, like, and Auburn I think goes to Mississippi State this next year, so I'll probably see her. But I'm like, I want to go to an Auburn game, but
Yeah.
like. Our like directors who normally go with me to games, they're like, we don't want to go back to Auburn because they had a terrible experience when it was Alabama Auburn. They're like, we don't want to go back to Auburn.
Auburn's a really, really cool town. I was there like
Really?
5 years ago, but it's just it's even like smaller than State College. Like it's
Really?
tiny, it's quaint, it's really nice. No one would really ever get the chance to go through there because unless you're going to Auburn, like it's just kind of out of the way. But
Yeah, I didn't even get to go to like Bryant Denny last year, which I probably could have, but it just worked out that I just happened to go to like all the Mississippi State games. So like I have been like when I moved down to Mississippi, my mom and I, we stopped in Tuscaloosa on the way, so I got to see it, which is really cool town, but I have not got to go to the stadium yet. Same with Ole Miss. I've just kind of seen it. So the only stadium I really know is Mississippi State, and then state championships for high school football were at Southern Miss football stadium this year. So I got to see that, which is pretty cool. So yeah, and there's a guy from Southern Miss who just signed his deal with the Eagles. He's a wide receiver. His name is Quez Watkins. He's
a speedster.
Yeah,
right?
he just signed his deal with them. He might have got like 2 or 3 mil or something like that, but he's pretty good. And there's another guy from Southern Miss who's on the like Balentikoff watch list and stuff like that. So they've got some guys that come out of there. I mean, that are kind of talented. But yeah, there's Southern Miss fans too. So we kind of like our main teams that we technically cover are like Mississippi State and Alabama because they're both only an hour and a half. But then Southern Miss is only an hour and a half too. So we cover Southern Miss, and then like our bubble schools are like Ole Miss, LSU, Auburn.
Okay.
So because you'll get some emails once in a while like someone's like, why aren't you covering like Auburn enough? And I'm like, I'm sorry, they're like 5 hours away from us, so that's why I don't cover them as much. But people just want to like see their program represented, especially with the year LSU had though. We also kind of covered them too, but so they're neighbors, so we're like okay. But our main ones are definitely like Mississippi State, Alabama, Southern Miss.
No, I definitely understand. I'll get pissed if there's like a promo. I'm like, why is there not Penn State? Like, why is like Rutgers showed more than Penn State? So I definitely get the representation thing.
Yeah.
But what's like your daily schedule like, Ellie? Like before the coronavirus pandemic, you kind of take us through a day in the life of Ellie French when she's working.
Well, it's interesting. My role has sort of recently changed. So I am now, I guess what you would call the sports director now of the station, because I'm now the Monday to Friday versus before the pandemic, I was like our weekend sports anchor reporter. So my role has shifted a lot now. And because my daily routine is pretty much just I anchor Monday to Friday and I do like our 6 and 10 o'clock shows. And so I guess kind of a daily thing for me would be if there is enough stuff going on to cover, I'll kind of just come in at like between like 1:30 or 2 for our 6 o'clock show, kind of get my rundown like created, figure out what story I want to lead with, and then what I want to go into after that. So like I'm trying to think, the Mississippi High School Activities Association, they had a meeting on this past Tuesday where they made their decision on fall sports pretty much, and they're like postponing the season by 2 weeks. And so that was my lead obviously for that day, is the MHSA's decision, like what the calendar now looks like. So football now won't start until September. And so that was my lead. And then from there, I kind of have like an order. I like to try to do local and then go into national. But if I have to lead with the national story, then maybe I might reverse it and stuff. But I kind of always try to make sure there's a flow going. So if I'm starting with like high school football, and maybe I'll go to college football and then like NFL and just kind of get that flow going. But so that's if there is stuff. Now, if there's not content, then a lot of it is like a day or two before. Like if I need to go to a practice and, you know, get some film, like when they returned, we're able to start summer workouts, like just asking a coach, when are you guys doing workouts? And a lot of them, since it's so hot, are having them early in the morning. So I'm waking up at like 7:30 to go to practice at like 8:30 and film some, and then come home and take a nap, and then go put the show together and stuff. But yeah, so going to practices and interviewing coaches, like talking to the kids, like what's it like to be back and to, you know, be able to practice. I know things are different. Like they couldn't touch the football for like the first 3 weeks. What was that like? How hard was that, not being able to use the football? And they're like, oh, it was, you know, it was rough because they're like getting back into shape. But now they've kind of had like a month and a half almost of getting back into it. So teams are starting to kind of get back into being in shape, and soon enough, like, because when they made that decision, like I said, they've said this is when the football season will start. These are when they'll start wearing pads. Like this is when it'll happen. And that's really good for us too at the station, because we do like previews of teams leading up until like every Friday we have our Football Friday show. And so we like to do the previews before the football season starts. And so we've kind of had to put that on hold right now, because we're like, well, are we going to even going to have a season? Like, when are they going to start working out of pads? Like, where are we going to go? Like, who's working out? And so just figuring out all that stuff. But that's kind of what they decided. I think the Alabama schools are going as normal. Like they start in August. The Mississippi schools, though, the public at least have delayed it till September. The private schools, though, they're starting in August, and same with the private schools in Alabama. So, because we cover like private for both and public for both. So it's like, so it's and then also keeping tabs on the junior colleges too, because that's the junior colleges play on Thursday nights, and like the National Junior College Athletic Association made their decision last Monday. So it's kind of a busy week that they're pushing back fall sports to the spring. But then like the Mississippi Association of Community Colleges came out and said that they like refrained from voting for that. So they're going to have their own vote and decide basically. And so I was trying to talk to all these ADs at schools that we cover. And I'm like, so because you guys didn't vote, like, are you going to try to have a season? But the National said that season's going to be pushed back. So how is that going to work? And I guess they're going to vote and figure out if they all want to play each other and that's that, or if they're going to, but if they do decide that, then they can't compete in postseason stuff. If they follow what the National said, then they can compete in the postseason. So it's like, it's just kind of a mess with them right now. I'm like, I don't know what they're going to do. Like a lot of, like I talked after the decision was made, because we cover like, have you guys ever watched like Last Chance U?
Oh, of course.
Yeah. So we cover EMCC, because Scuba is like 45 minutes north of us. And so Buddy, like, he's so nice. So I just call him. I'm like, what is this decision that the MACC put out? Like, what does this mean? And like, what are you guys going to do? And he essentially just explained that the region that they're in region 23 wanted the National to wait to vote. And so that's why they didn't vote, because they wanted the National to wait a few weeks to vote. So they were just putting out this statement basically saying like, we don't agree that they made this decision right now. But he's like, he didn't really like give a specific answer of like, no, we're not playing football like this fall. Like he just is like, we have to kind of like wait and see what the MACC is going to do and stuff. So I'm like, I don't even know what's going to happen right now, but we'll just wait and see.
I feel like you're one of the few people I've heard describe Buddy as nice, because he does not come off that way.
It's so funny. I also am like really good friends with his daughter, who she's never seen the show, but she actually makes an appearance maybe like once or twice in it. And I feel so bad, because it's like the part where they have her in there, she's talking about like, oh, like my dad's like really great, like kind guy. And then it flashes to a video of him like screaming at a player. And I'm just like, like, of course, Netflix just tweaked that so much. I mean, because they really did, and that there's no like, it's not surprising because that's like reality TV. They're gonna tweak it to be how it is. Not saying that Buddy wasn't like a very passionate coach by any means, because the whole thing with the him getting into it with the ref and stuff. Like he is a very passionate coach, but he is like the nicest guy ever, and like cares about his players so much, and like wanting to get them. Like he knows that this is like a stop for them to get them to that next level and stuff. And I think like the big thing for him was after that first season, just seeing like how much it really blew up. And like, I think seeing himself, according to his daughter, Lauren, on camera and how he was really made him step back and be like, oh gosh, I don't want to be seen like that. I don't want to be seen as this like raging crazy coach that no one wants to play for. He's like, I just want to be seen as like a coach that cares about his players. And he is so nice. So, but I feel like his time at EMCC might be coming to an end kind of soon. Yeah, that's kind of the vibe that I got from like talking with his daughter and stuff, is like, he's not looking for an out right now, but like if there is a way that like it could be coming soon, maybe, because he's been there he's entering his 11th season there now, I think. So he's been there a long time. So I don't know, but that's kind of something that I've heard. And like, I don't know if that means like next year he could be gone, or soon means 4 years or 5 years, like who knows and stuff. So it's like with Saban at Alabama, they're like, when will his time be? They're like, well, he's from like West Virginia, and I guess they're playing West Virginia in a series in a few years. So they're like, will that be the end of Saban at Alabama? Like, so it's like, who really knows?
Yeah, you're breaking news on this show. Look at you.
Yeah, I know. I was kind of. It's interesting to hear, because it's like once a coach has done a lot of really good stuff for a program, you want them to stay there forever. But you know that the time's going to come eventually. The last national championship they won was not this past year, but the year before, I think, or something.
17, something like that.
Yeah, something like that. Because this past year was a very down year for them. Like they lost maybe like 4 games or something.
Oh wow!
It was just interesting. So, but they still get a lot of really like talented guys. Like they have some guy, like a defensive end, I think, that's being recruited by like Auburn or something. So they still get some talented guys and stuff. Because I mean, they still, even though they haven't like won for maybe like 2 years or something, they're still like the team to beat, probably because of like Last Chance U and all that stuff. But there are some other really good JUCO teams, like Mississippi Gulf Coast that won this past year is really good too. So it's like junior college football and like junior college, like sports in general, Mississippi are really big. So, and my world of junior college was like nothing before I went to Mississippi.
Right. Then you go to the South and it's a whole
world. And like I knew Last Chance U, but I really didn't watch it until moving to Mississippi. Like I had seen it on Netflix, I remember, when it was like a trending show, and being like, oh, it's football. Like I would probably like that, but never watched it. But it's so accurate, the way they describe scuba, like this train track, and you cross the train track and that's where the school is. Like that's literally it. Like there's nothing really else in scuba except there's like this 4-way stop, and then you cross the train tracks, and that's like down a little ways is where the school is. Like there's nothing. It's like you hit it on the way to Starkville from Meridian. Like that's really it.
Oh wow.
So there's not a whole lot in scuba, but it's really fun. Like people have like, because it used to be called Scuba Tech. Like they love it. They're like Scuba Tech, and so there's a lot of people that have gone to EMCC, and then there's also like East Central Community College we cover too, and like a guy who just got drafted by the Redskins this year played there, Antonio Gibson. He went in like the 3rd round as like a wide receiver. And then like Tim Anderson from the White Sox played at East Central. Like, so just really, really random people have stops in Mississippi that you just wouldn't even ever expect. So
Jerry Rice went to, Mississippi Valley State, right?
Yeah, he was like born in Starkville and then went to high school. I actually looked this up yesterday. He went to high school like an hour south, because I'm like, where is he? Like the high school he went to, I didn't even recognize the name, but he went to high school like an hour like south of Starkville or something. And so I was like, okay, but he's one of those players like coming out of a HBCU school that, but I think it was honestly just him as a player. Like no matter where he went, he was
It
always
didn't matter,
just
right?
gonna be this player. But I've never, because that's like up in the Delta. I've never been to like North Mississippi and stuff, and like Memphis is close to Mississippi too, and I've never really been there. So
Yeah. Anyway, Ellie, we have one more question for you. So
I'm nervous.
no,
He's like, so silence.
that
On
was
the hot seat.
Yeah, I don't know why I paused there. So I have a few friends that are reporters, and they kind of bounce around from like network to network around the country. So just where do you see your career going, and what do you eventually anticipate, to happen in the long run for you?
Yeah, I probably see, at least in the short future, my next step being going to like a higher market next, wherever that may be. I'm not 100% sure because it's kind of just, I guess, dependent on like what's going to be open. But I would love to try to maybe be in like I have a friend who's a meteorologist in like Baton Rouge, and he thinks that like their sports person might be leaving soon. So he's like, oh, maybe you can come to Baton Rouge. I'm like, yeah, maybe like a Baton Rouge or somewhere like that with, a little bit more civilization I'd like to be at. And I think where I am like sports wise in the South, I love covering sports in the South. So if I could stay in the South, that'd be cool. Or like maybe hit like Texas or somewhere, that'd be great. But I'm honestly pretty open to go like wherever. So I think next step would be to I think I need one more market locally before I could try and make like a network jump, because it seems to be the trend of someone else does, like you usually do like 2 local markets and then maybe make that network jump. But eventually I'd love to like do like sideline reporting for like, if anything, I'd love to cover basketball if I wanted to be a sideline reporter. Like I don't mind doing like football or hockey maybe even or something, but I'd love to do like basketball sideline reporting. But like long term would be to be on a show like The Jump or Good Morning Football. Like if I could go to work every day, be on a show for like 3-4 hours and that's my day, Monday to Friday, it'd be perfect. Like I just would love to be on a show. I think eventually like I think I am like a studio type person. So if I can either be on a show and be in studio or be a studio host of some sort, that would be great. But I'd love to be on a show like that. Or if I could, like obviously dream would be like to be like the 49ers beat reporter or something. So like their team reporter, which the girl who has it now, she does a great job. But like, if she leaves eventually, maybe just slide in or something.
Right in there,
yeah, but I'd love to do that. I think it'd be really fun to either be like on a show and it doesn't have to just be the 49ers, but like cover a team specifically, because then it's like you just get to focus on the team and the stories with them. So I think that would be more fun than having to kind of like nationally cover something.
Right. So you cover so many things, right? And it would be cool to have that like team focus, right?
Yeah, like I said, it doesn't have to be the 49ers. It could be like another NFL team or something. But I think ideally like I'd like to do football or basketball. But I mean, I've even thought about like, because the girl who does NASCAR coverage, she does a great job. I'm like, what if I did NASCAR? Like I'm like, I will go pretty much where this career kind of takes me to try and just build like the resume, or whether it's golf I cover, like I said, hockey. And I never would have said that before, but I'm like, I'm pretty much open to do whatever. So
yeah, absolutely. I mean, Scott Van Pelt, he started that Golf Channel,
and he's the GOAT. Not that I could ever be like SVP, but yeah. And I'm hyped for him to come to like DC, I guess.
Yeah, moving down. It's crazy.
Yeah, he's great. So, and I think this is because he's a Maryland guy, so this is like where his heart is and stuff. But yeah, I'm kind of just right now with a career, I'm like, I will take kind of whatever comes my way. And like, obviously I do want to stay focused on where I want to be, but I'm also like, let's just be along for the journey and see what happens. Like, I don't know whenever I do make it, it could be 5 years from now or 15 years from now. And I'll be happy, because I'm like, I know this is a long career that I want to stay in. So I'm kind of like, I'm not in a rush to like get to the top, I guess.
Yeah.
I'm just like, let's just have fun.
Right. That's
So,
awesome. Well,
yeah.
Ellie, this has been a pleasure. I really appreciate you coming on. I know you're busy with your promotion and everything, so thanks for making time out of your day to spend some time with us. But before we let you go, the Niners, how are they going to look this year?
Oh, I think they'll be solid even with losing DeForest Buckner. I think that hurt because he's great, but I think we're still going to be okay. Defensively, I'm not really too concerned. Even offensively, I'm not so much too. The interesting thing is what's going to happen with the whole Raheem Mostert thing and like why they don't want to pay him and what's going on with that. But a lot of it, I feel like year after year, it's more just like, how's Jimmy going to be? I guess it's not so much how the team's going to be, how's Jimmy going to be? And that's always a concern for me because ever since he got injured, I feel like he hasn't quite been himself. And I don't know, it's because he's nervous to get injured again, but it's more like how
I'm still not sold on him at all. Like, I
know. And I'm like, I don't mean to bag on him because I know that he is good. And so it's like, I don't want to do it, but I kind of agree. I'm like, I need to see like a really good, confident season from him to feel good. Cause I didn't really see that this past season. Like, I don't think he's terrible, but I'm like, I need to see a little bit more. So I think that if they can figure out this Raheem Mostert thing and depending on how Jimmy how he does this season, then they'll be in good shape. But I trust the office and I trust Kyle Shanahan and I trust that we have a good foundation and good players that like they want to win. Now that we were this close, they're like, they want to win a Super Bowl. So, I mean, we've got like Kittle and Bosa and good fired up, good players. So I think we could be really good. I think we could win the Super Bowl, but I think we should have won it this past year, but I think we can do it. So hopefully.
Well, I'm a Steelers fan, so I'm trying to hold off on the Niners winning their 6. So,
ooh, yeah, I was gonna say that it's like, well, I mean, because now it's like the Patriots and Steelers both have 6, but come on, like just let us join it because I have this poster.
I'll leave the glory days for the Niners back in the 90s, but I'm not going to let them get another one.
See, the fact that now I've seen them lose 2 has been hard because it's like when they lost
the Harbaugh Bowl.
Yeah, so hopefully we'll see. And like I said, I love this team so much, and I love John Lynch as a manager, and I like Kyle Shanahan that I really feel like they deserve to win one. So
they've done a hell of a job.
Yeah, it's been a turnaround for sure.
You make an argument with John Lynch, but like I'll leave it at that.
Yeah.
Really? I think he's been good.
Yeah, he's been great.
Yeah. Oh, I thought you said never mind. I misunderstood you.
No. I like the guy. I just don't like the 49ers franchise in general. So
that's fair.
I'm sad.
Well, Ellie, thanks so much for coming on with us. I hope the Niners do well. Do you want to plug your Twitter and social media and all that?
Yeah.
Should I just say it? I think I'm like Twitter. I believe I'm at Ellie French TV, and Instagram. I think I'm just Ellie French. So yeah,
it is pretty amusing when we ask people this because they're like, I think this is my handle.
Yeah, well, I like changed it because I can't get verified through like Gray, and so I'm like, well, I want to be verified as like something that I know I'm not going to change because I think at first it was like Ellie French WTOK, but I'm like, well, my next station I'll change it. So I'm like, let's just do Ellie.
Yeah, and then
I'm like, I'm like Ellie French TV is what it is. So that's perfect.
Awesome.
But yeah.
Well, give her a follow on there. Yeah, thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks, Ellie. Really appreciate it.
All right, well, appreciate you guys. Have a good one, okay?
You too.
Right. Talk
bye.
To you. Bye.
Feeling good, like I should. When in dark, walk around the neighborhood. Feeling blessed, never stressed. Got that sunshine on my Sunday best. Yeah, hey, every day can be a better day despite the challenge. All you gotta do is leave it better than you found it.